Hello, Hare Krishna. My name is Jvalamukhi, and I am recording my video blog called The J Files, which is my book, My Hoo-Hoo and the Destiny of the Universe. The Great Golden Age, the Great Sinister Movement, and the Fire Walk of Hare Krishna Kid. This is video number 17 in a series, and I just finished the last one almost a week ago or more now. It's been Christmas and heading into New Year, so I have not been on top of getting all these videos done, so thanks for your patience in between. The last video ended with the song called Lay It Down, which was my heart's offering of not passing on to the new generation all of the illnesses that come with abuse, and my dedication to purify my life and not pass down all of the things that were put into me. I may have mentioned this already in another video, but the devotees asked Srila Prabhupada, will our children be pure devotees? And Srila Prabhupada said no. And they said, well, why? And he said, because they have to associate with you, but the third generation will be. So that's a very telling statement that souls are trying to come out of this age of quarrel and hypocrisy, all of the contaminations that are there, and the valiant efforts of our parents can't be downplayed. They gave everything for the preaching mission, and yet because the influence of Kali is so strong, many impurities of the heart were there, and the second generation felt the effects of that. So I believe that our generation, the second generation, it is our front line to sift and filter the poison from the nectar. And I was very, very fortunate to meet Srila Prabhupada disciple, Mahaprabhu, who showed me how to do that. So that song, Lay It Down, is the path that I'm choosing, to lay down all of the things that aren't me, that don't serve, that I inherited, and to be the soul and shed the story. This is continuing after that song. Lord Nityananda, the most merciful incarnation of the Lord, answered my prayers yesterday. I was asking him to fill up my heart with positive attraction for his pastimes, because as I am clearing, I am finding I don't have a real shelter anymore. I had only imagined the safety of the things that I held on to. I wanted to absorb my mind by telling his pastimes in the form of books and music, illustrate them and sing them to my children. And as I thought this, standing before the temple altar, the deity form of Lord Nityananda, one of his earrings fell to the floor in confirmation of my prayer. My dear Lord, thank you unlimitedly for your unconditional love and the beautiful family you have sent to surround me. I even pray on the behalf of my fearful, guilty father to take shelter under your lotus feet and to give up his denial and the envy he has harbored against you and thus everyone else in his heart. You know everything, and all is rightfully done. Om Tat Sat. Gift number 7. Entering the heart of the matter, I strike a mother lode while digging towards the absolute truth. I go down the rabbit hole. I open Pandora's box. Remember, poop is the fertilizer. Man, did my devotional creeper have tons of nourishment. Remember the saying, be careful what you wish for, you just might get it. Prayer is also a wish. Yesterday, Friday evening, I again went in for a session with my mentor. I circumambulated the sacred Tulsi plant that stood in her courtyard, and I prayed to her, O goddess of devotion, you who never leave the lotus feet of Sri Hari, please release whatever might stand in my way of offering service to your Lord Krishna. Please empower me to spread this urgent and profound message. I also said a prayer to Shishi Gornitai before the session. In prayer, with the aid of the Tachyon tools and my expert facilitator, The first few, quote, covering layers came off. I was getting better at just letting them go instead of engaging with them or fighting with them or identifying with them. I wanted the information that they hid. I called these energetic thought forms or spirits guardians because they always presented themselves as big and scary, like they had a right to be there and that no one was going to make them move. It turns out the soul is superior to matter, and where there is a will, there is a way. And I have a note here for myself to describe what is called taking your power back and how to release coverings or inner conversations. So the anatomy of the self is that you are part and parcel of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Mamaivangso Jivaloke Jiva Bhuta Sanatana. It's from Bhagavad Gita. That the living entity is eternally my fragmented part, Krishna says. That means that we always retain our individuality. We never merge into the void or the whole. We are always persons, just like Krishna is a person. We are persons, and we're always individuals. And we come to this world of matter to exercise our individual free will, which we never lose. The Lord does not interfere with our free will. And so we're here, and we have two bodies. We have the subtle body, which is the mind, intelligence, and ego, which is false ego covered by the identification with the physical and subtle body. And we have the gross body, which is a manifestation of our feeling, thinking, willing. And lifetime after lifetime, depending on our choices and our activities, we get a different body. And there are 8,400,000 different species of life in the universe, not just one universe, there's many universes. All this information is given in the instruction manuals that come with creation called the Vedas, or books of knowledge. Modern society has tried very hard to turn the Vedas into nothing more than mythology and to tell you that modern science has all the answers, but that is not a fact. So taking your power back is a process of uncovering your true self, your eternal spiritual identity, one decision at a time, one inner conversation at a time, one misconception at a time, one result of negative karma at a time. So typically, we identify with the negative things that stick to us. And those negative conversations sound like, I'm a victim, I was abandoned, that person hurt me and they're my enemy, or I can't do it because I'm too XYZ, whatever, self-limiting beliefs. And sound vibration is very, very powerful. And it's not just like you say the words, it's coming from you, the self, here in the heart, in connection with the Creator, your best friend, Krishna, in your heart. It's not just words that come from your head, which is like the filing box. You sort information. But inside the heart is the gearbox that actually shifts things. And when you say those words in connection with the Lord from heart space, things actually change for you. So I do this all day long, dozens of times a day, when I become aware of something that I don't want to keep and retain. The process of purification is going on all day long. So I'm being the witness, the self, the soul, and I'm witnessing the chetra, the body, the field of activities, and my own thoughts and feelings and others' thoughts and feelings and the interactions throughout the day. This process is of purification. So as you chant Hare Krishna and you follow a clean lifestyle, as Srila Prabhupada gave us, only eating Krishna Prasad, no food cooked by non-devotees, no karmi grains, are foods that contain the karma of persons that are inimical to the Lord. The consciousness becomes purified, and we can actually observe ourselves and what we are encased in, the mind and the body. So taking my power back sounds something like, in the past, I've given a lot of power to the deep inner conversation that I don't have any power to change the situation I'm in. And I give that inner conversation no more power. Or in the past, I've given a lot of power in my life to the belief that I'm a victim of so-and-so. And I give that inner conversation no more power. Then you take a deep breath and you come into heart space and you repeat it 2-3 times till you begin to feel it shift. And gradually, every day as you do this, the cleansing process, you chant the Maha Mantra, you eat Krishna Prasadam, you will find that all of these troublesome things leave. And you are a better and better, cleaner and cleaner, more and more powerful person at the end of the day. So my intention with going in or deeper into heart space with breath was to face anything that was causing an obstacle in my service to God and my family. It often felt as if I were coming to a surgical appointment with no anesthetic. It is an understatement to say that it was hard, very, very hard. Everything in my body said, this is scary and it's going to hurt. And it did. And my computer just jumped to somewhere else. Don't you love technology? Where are we? Where are we? La, 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 la. Ah, there we are. Thank you for your patience. So everything in my body said, this is scary and it's going to hurt. And that was true. What was also true was that I chose to act in spite of fear. And that is what people call courage. But in my case, people say, oh, you're so brave, you're so courageous. But I don't feel that I'm brave or courageous. That's just my nature. In fact, it's been taken more self-control or more courage to shut my mouth than to speak my truth. Because I know that the ultimate truth is what's going to set everybody free, not the relative truth of who did what. Because that's not going to change anything for me or for anybody else. But the ultimate truth will. So I needed to wait to speak all of these truths till I was actually there, till I could see beyond duality and clean my heart of all of the stuff that was there, all the rage, the anger, the blame, the desire for revenge, etc., etc. So I prayed to my Lord for the courage to clean my heart for him. Please, I want you to sit on the clean lotus of my heart. Right now, it is so full of dirty things, so full of pain, fear, envy, anger. If you do not rise like the sun in the darkness of this heart, how will it be possible for me to serve you? How will I go on? How will I be able to carry out the mission your dear servant Srila Prabhupada gave to us? How will this movement be able to benefit the world in its present heavily compromised state? I closed my eyes, breathed in deeply, and then the body began to remember. I relived being violated by other family members, both male and female, on my father's side. I began to realize the depth of the whole family sickness. I realized this was not at all an isolated event, but a way of life for them. Unfortunately, I was born into this family. I lived with them. Ugh. As a side note, my grandfather was a Freemason. And if any of you know what the Freemasons are about, that should explain everything right there. Some of the recall was just like watching a movie with no emotional connection to it. My mentor describes this as the grocery list of events. Due to severe disassociation, when the memory comes to the conscious awareness at first, often there is no emotion at all with it. The basic process of integration included for me in random order. Number 1, there's an unknown source of pain or fear. Number 2, I would relax into the terror with breath and intention. I would find that place of resistance. Encountering resistance in the form of a covering layer or a gatekeeper. So I take that deep breath. You know, if my my root chakra was screaming at me in pain, I would just breathe my awareness down into there. Then I would see some, typical screaming demon gargoyle, and all of me would be like, no, don't go there. So that I would take that deep breath and courage and say, all right, Krishna, I'm going there, help me out. And I would breathe my awareness into there. and I would see some gatekeeper, some covering layer, and I take my power back. So I see you. Thank you for all the service you've done for me. And I no longer give you any more power. I don't need your services anymore. Thank you. Goodbye. And in the name of the Lord, with full awareness on how it came in, my choices, I would send it upwards, transformed with a prayer for everyone's healing. What's so amazing is that everything in this creation is personal, including the boogeymen and your covering layers and the modes of nature, or whatever you want to call them, the subtle beings that cover the layers of consciousness within us. We actually have an entire universe of consciousness within us, and we're hiding from our true selves in different ways. And so as we decide to find ourselves, self-realization, which is everybody's purpose that creation is made for, self-realization. As we approach that self-realization, we encounter these personal beings that have been put in place where we previously were taking shelter of forgetfulness or denial. And as we encounter those beings, we thank them. This isn't a fight. This is a painless exorcism. It's a releasing. It's a thank you. I can take it from here. And typically those entities, some of them are disembodied beings, some of them are thought forms. It doesn't really make that big of a difference. When you clear them, you just say a prayer for their transformation and say, please go upwards, take shelter of the holy names, take shelter of the Lord who's so kind. You can have a new service instead of this unsavory one. You've served ungrateful masters before, especially if they're jinns from people who do black magic, a lot of those in the system as well. And you encounter these snarling beastie things inside of you, and you just offer them the love that you have received from Lord Caitanya and Nityananda, and say, look, you've got an opportunity. You've got an opportunity. Nobody else cares for you. They just want to use you. Take this opportunity, take these holy names and go upwards. And almost 100% of the time, when you come to that state, they will willingly step aside with folded hands in gratitude and leave your body. And then you get to see what was underneath. So holding on to the Lord's lotus feet, or any safe place that one can go to in the heart and the mind. And then come the memories. You experience visual, audio, or body memory, the convulsions, the tremors, the dry heaving, and then the catharsis, screaming, crying, dry heaving, raging, or just breathing it out like a yogi if you can. And then there's, as the catharsis happens, there's also extrasensory information around the event and occasional downloads. Like you'll just get a aha and poof, the whole situation, the puzzle pieces will begin to come together for you. And then the grieving, the acceptance, the forgiveness, the self-forgiveness being one of the hardest ones to do. And then the joy, laughing out loud, crying in joy, and profound connection to the Lord in the heart. And then rinse and repeat. That's my everyday, every day, every day. Not for the faint of heart. Most people will never do that. It'll take them many lifetimes, but the reward on the other side makes it all worth it. And I tell you, with great emphasis, that as hard as it's been, I would do it all again. I would pay it all over again for the gifts on the other side. The two lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is an actual fact in my heart that I can perceive by His unlimited grace, by the grace of the Guru Parampara. And you too can have that if you decide to take full accountability for the body that you're in and all of your experiences, and to step out of duality. Whoever quits playing the game first wins. Even as I was experiencing the body reacting to what was coming up, because of my cognitive dissonance, the self-doubt was immense. It would be a lot easier to accept that I was just going insane than to live with what was actually coming out of my memory, what was coming out of my body. The problem was, it all made perfect sense. There were symptoms and even in events spanning years that were like threads connecting the jigsaw pieces of the memory puzzle that was erupting and oozing out all over the place. As time went by, there were more confirmations of this sort. If I was crazy, then there were a lot of other people who were having the same hallucination simultaneously. I got an insight into my father's behavior. In hindsight, I perceive the cause of his weirdness and violence. There was symptomatic evidence to weigh out my sheer disbelief, my self-doubt. A few times, I let the strong voices speak through my mouth instead of the now customary way of not allowing the entities or the voices to speak, because you're taking your power back from them. You don't want to identify with them. You don't want them to play with your body. But sometimes when you do want clarity, I would just let whatever was coming up come out of my mouth. And it would say, so typically I would control myself under Mahaprabhu's guidance and say, the entity says, or he said, or she said. I wanted to know the truth. I needed to know what was happening, to piece together all the flashes of memory and the multiple dimensions into a cohesive picture. The heavy male spirit said, speaking about Dad, he knew and he hated himself for having to be financially dependent on them, his parents. He knew, but hated himself for being addicted to the perverted incest sex. That is why he told her, my mother, that she was crazy, and that is why he smashed her head into the wall. Yes, there was domestic violence along with the sexual abuse, which he also hid as best he could. I understood that Dad knew what Granddaddy did to me and what he was trying and what he was bringing us back into when we moved out of the temple and back to his parents' place, and why he abused Mom the way that he did. He had the devotee part that wanted to run to Krishna, but the dark perverted side that was addicted to this sickness was also there. In his denial, he effectively chose to let himself be controlled by the latter, and thus destroyed our family and imprinted our hearts with the family generational sickness. He would literally jump in front of the television with an outcry if there were some kissing scene, even if it was just a commercial. There were lots of other signs of weirdness. A lot of things made sense when I stopped trying to deny what was coming out of my body and just accepted what I knew to be true. This was not only a family affair. It was an entire organized group. I saw our family's pediatrician performing perverse sexual things to me at our grandparents' house. His actions connected to my present-day reproductive organs' chronic dysfunction. It also explains why, when at the age of 14, as I lay for days literally dying on the family couch from a ruptured appendix, I refused to let on that I was sick at all, so that I would not have to go see our family doctor. I would have rather died literally. I tried, albeit unconsciously. Incest and molestation with invited outside guests was not the only family hobby. Underneath the carefully manicured demeanor and social and religious Christian appearance, the family had a dark secret, even from themselves. So does the whole damn town. If you ever pass through a small, quaint town that gives you the creeps, Salem, Ohio, trust yourself, don't stop, and keep driving. Those towns are all over the world. Whatever you do, don't move there, and don't send your kids to the, quote, nice schools. There was satanic rituals and mind programming. I was aware that I had been taken into the basement at grandmother's house, the one they told us was part of the Underground Railroad. Ha! It was there, but maybe that's not the only thing it was used for. There was a table. I saw it. I see bodies lying around. There was one black man with screwdrivers sticking out all around his neck that I saw in particular, but they were not physical bodies, just ghosts of the departed. They were attracted by such things. I was on a table. My stomach is doing flips and tying itself into knots as I even reference this memory as I try to write. This is really, really hard to write about. I got a vision of a rounded cube-shape-like object, like a thick butcher's block, cutting board almost. Mahaprabhu had me enter into that image with breath. It was my uterus. She said, reach down and pull it out. I did that, and the rounded rectangular shape I saw was a close-up of several or a dozen small black pellets that were forced into my vagina. The black, dark black was very significant energetically. It was like a poison and evil, and it was at my cervix. Mahaprabhu asked, what are those for? And I answered, to invite the unholy one to take birth. As soon as these words came out, I was extremely scared. This was the point that Kamra said, by the power of Jesus Christ, let all of the curses or spells that were put on you go back to whomever sent them, and may they come to their senses by the mercy of God. She sensed energy at my breasts and told me to put my hands on them. I said, no. It felt too scary. It was hard for me to make my hands touch my own breasts. Somehow I managed to do it and put my breath and intention there. And wow, did the crying come fast. She asked me, how many people are in the room? I became aware of a large number. I remarked that the whole damn town was there. I bolted up into a sitting position and let out a high-pitched scream. The fear, like cold poison ether, swept through my body. Horror, horror, great horror. Kamra could not help but cry for a second in fear as well. It was so strong and palpable, the fear that I was experiencing. I screamed so much that I could not scream anymore. I fell limp back on my pillow. Then I saw my vagina was cut and bleeding. I saw my inner thighs soaked in blood, Kamra said knowingly. They make superficial cuts and tell you that they are implanting things. Typical satanic ritual stuff. I had to pee, so I got up off the table. I crumpled halfway to the floor and somehow made it there and back. I knew that the time was short and asked her if she wanted to finish. We continued for almost half an hour more. She was asking my energy field if I wanted to continue or bring it to a close. Things were coming out now, like being in the middle of passing stool, unpleasant, but one would not want to stop but get it all out. That is how it felt. I kept seeing eyes, green, thick eyes of some kind of reptile. They were different personified energies. Every time she asked me if I wanted to stop, I shouted, no. She could not at first recognize if it was me or some entity speaking so forcefully that I spoke that word. I was in the middle of it, so I could not express myself gently. But I wanted to continue. I wanted to lay it down. I shall lay this down, I kept repeating in a strong voice. At one point, I wanted to rip out my reproductive organs and throw them away. I kept seeing a black and red pattern, reptile skin. She said that the black and the red I spoke of was significant. There were many images and entities that were asked to leave. The session could not come to its natural end because she had another client in 10 minutes. I sat up and felt fine about that. She apologized a few times. My observer self was okay, but not my emotional self. She was definitely not okay. I sat up to get ready to leave, but the visions, the body memories kept coming. I told her I saw a black triangle with an eye in the center. As soon as I said that, a small cry escaped her mouth, and mine too. It was sharp, like an arrowhead. It was time for me to leave. I went and lay down on the sidewalk behind the house to have some quiet. I could not drive at this point. My mind and my body were reeling. When I finally made it home, after half an hour on the walkway behind Mahaprabhu's house, my sister helped me put the kids to sleep. I went to the temple and sang a melody that came to me after the last session. I drove home and screamed the whole way. No one could hear me in the car. I pulled up to the house like that, face to the steering wheel, screaming. I had to quickly compose myself, however, because there came my little angels running towards the car. Mommy! The next morning, I got up to perform my regular duties. While I was cleaning, my sister was telling me something. Suddenly, a strong wave of emotion came over me, and I burst into tears. To avoid screaming out at the top of my lungs, I clamped both my hands over my mouth and ran out of the house barefoot, jumping all 4 stairs in one leap. I wanted to get in the car, but it was locked and I hadn't brought the key, so I sprinted down the limestone lane. The rocks on the dirt road felt good on my bare feet as they struck the earth. The pain seemed good somehow. I ended up at the large empty house for sale down the road. I needed a private, quiet place alone. I found my way to the large tree house and spent the next hour cleaning it up. I was there for a couple of hours, lying down, doing yoga, watching the lizard mother mind her eggs. Our little dog Sadhu came there too. He is a bit of a psychic dog, I think. I was glad for his company, fleas and all. It was healing to be there, to be so still and childlike. Me in a treehouse. These memories are so vivid, and the truth of them is evidenced by my strong emotional releases and the physical symptoms that clear up after I come to acceptance of what I see. I have been super good about my diet of no sweets at all, but this past week, the itching and pain is just increasing. I also got a heavy boil-like pimple that was really painful on my pubic area. My mind is reeling. How to make sense of this? How is this possible? How to string together the list of events into a cohesive timeline? I was told that it does not work that way. I even asked Mahaprabhu if it were possible I was picking up on her own experiences or that she was somehow projecting her stuff on me. Her answer was something to the effect that, then why is your body having such a violent reaction if you made it up, if it isn't yours? She is very careful about each sentence that comes out of her mouth. She speaks very little. Will it help her client go deeper? Is it the right time to speak this sentence now? She follows where I am going and observes. I desperately wanted some niche of denial to hold on to, but she was right. How could my body have held all of this trauma in the tissues since forever if it wasn't mine? If it wasn't true? My whole world was topsy-turvy. I snorted a half-hearted laugh and accepted the truth. However convenient it would have been to blame the healing facilitator. It simply wasn't anyone else's stuff. It was mine. All mine. This really blows my mind. Me, the victim of ritual abuse, satanic in nature? But they loved me, didn't they? How is it possible? I am really logically challenged right now. My body is limp and my equilibrium is shaky. I also did not chant today. The itching that I have come to understand means that my body has something else to tell me is worse today. Apparently more wants to come out. Oh boy, I can't wait. Yuck. I will end this video there. Don't worry, this ends well. Stay tuned. Thank you for your attention and take care of your hearts if this is all too much information. Hare Krishna. All glories to Shishi Gornitai, Kali Yuga Pavana Gora Hari, the Savior of the Most Fallen. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Hare Krishna.